Are you framed? Are you framed? We are back, because we got nothing else to do. So we're going to turn. That's not true, but it's fun to come here. And why not? Live at the Podshop. On Friday, we were a little quiet. Shout out to Eric. Happy Monday. It's a beautiful day here in Austin. We endured a terrible weather weekend. And had we had DC Austin, our event that we canceled, 150 y'all were planning on coming here to Austin. It would have been terrible weather. So I don't know if that's some recompense, but
I would have rather had the event in horrible weather than not have the event, period.
That's true. But it would have been weather. So, that's something. We're going to start on time?
We're going to start on time. It's 11 a.m. Monday morning. Dan, you named this episode. You take responsibility for this title.
I do.
I mean, we talked about it together, but you're the one that put that title in there.
Yep. I'll take full responsibility for asshole entrepreneurs are loving this. I know a lot of you cackling over there. That's what's going on. Asshole entrepreneurs are loving this. 5 things to love in downtimes. This episode is about secrets. It is about secret admissions. It's also about optimism and trying to have some fun with, a lot of the shit that's going on. If you go onto New York Times, CNN, Fox News, Twitter, blah, 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 blah. It's gonna bum you out and it's gonna demotivate you. And now's a wonderful time to be motivated, which I think is like pretty easy to recognize. So caveats at the top of this episode before we get into our 5 points. What you're about to hear is based on secret confessional emails and phone calls I have received from you in the audience.
We're not going to be naming any names.
But it has been, I guess, I'm being cute. It's not surprising that a lot of y'all are loving this, right? And that's the other caveat that I got to say is we are not going to talk about health talk today. We are not going to talk about viruses. We're not going to talk about whether you should wear a mask or not. By the way, it's a respiratory disease. Maybe wearing a mask is all right idea. Just an okay
That's
idea.
Tomorrow's
let's
episode.
argue about that somehow. And also, I know a lot of y'all are hurting business-wise. And I've also talked to those of you who have bigger staff count or have a higher payroll than Ian and I generate in sales every year. And that payroll is in jeopardy right now. And on the one hand, a lot of people that are in that situation can say, my business is in a really bad spot. But a business isn't the same thing as an entrepreneur. And there's always that entrepreneur in you that might not be as fragile as the business that you own. You might look at a time like this and say, when tough times happen, that business that I own over there, that's in a rough spot. But me, I'm not going to be in a rough spot about this. I'm going to take this as a challenge.
We got a big challenge on our hands. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
These are turbulent times. A lot of people's revenue dropped 50, 75%, depending on what kind of business you're in. So how is it, how do you feel so disconnected from that personally? Like what's the coping mechanism? How can you look at your cash flow go down? How can you look at having to lay people off? How can you look at all that and think like, this is great?
Because I think entrepreneurs are by nature anti-fragile. The practice of entrepreneurship is anti-fragile. So fragile is something when you shake it up, it breaks. Robust is something when you shake it up, it kind of holds on. It's like a Mercedes Benz. You shake it up, it don't fall apart.
It gets stronger, like the trees. No,
it doesn't. Robust, it holds on. It holds on.
Wait, so are trees robust or are they anti-fragile?
Trees are robust because if like the shit really hits the fan, the tree falls over. Where a forest is anti-fragile because if the forest fire comes through, the king of the forest says, wait for me in 200 years. I'm going to be back, dog. And we're going to be better than ever. This is amazing fertilizer right here. That is anti-fragile. And look, as an entrepreneur, you wear many hats. You can be a mother, a father. You can be a business owner. but you're also that entrepreneur, right? So one of your businesses, it might break, but the entrepreneur, what is an entrepreneur? I wrote down something. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs elevate value, something valuable, to agreed upon wealth. And when there's a shakeup, those elevators start going up and down. And so something that you think is valuable in the world, something that you're working on, something that you're trying to persuade other people that is valuable, when everybody's reevaluating things and the structures are getting changed, that's when individuals can elevate value to agreed upon wealth. Therefore, although your business might be in a tough spot right now, that entrepreneurial DNA has to be just a little bit excited right now. And that's what I'm hearing from the phone calls. That's what I'm hearing from the emails. And it's from people that are crushing it. A lot of people's businesses are anti-fragile. A lot of people who have e-commerce shops that sell certain home goods that are in demand right now, they are crushing it. I mean, there's all different kinds of businesses that are crushing it right now. On the other hand, a lot of people are feeling the pain, but I think this kind of emotion of, this is kind of interesting times, has been pretty universal amongst a lot of entrepreneurs. So let's talk about what those reasons are for optimism today in 5 points, as is our standard. Do we have any questions before we get into the 5 points or comments?
Steve Z, are there plans to upload the videos to the podcast? Maybe, probably.
How do we do that?
Working on it. How do we do it? New feed?
Do we do a new
Same
feed, or do we put them up on the old feed, the current feed? That's the question, or do we edit them? I don't know. I think if we just put these audios, it's Steve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steve, I think if we just put these audios up on the podcast feed, it would be kind of a tough listen. That's kind of my feel. So I don't know if we could have
Yeah, we're thinking about maybe editing them. That's a lot of time and effort and money.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Use these videos to build your YouTube presence. Wow. Thank you for showing up. Really good e-bikes. Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Nobody wants to watch us on YouTube.
I mean, what we're hearing is some people like to watch, like you guys that come to the show, and then other people, the majority of people watch it later or listen to it later and don't watch it at all.
People want to listen to it. That's what they want to do. Most people.
You got a shout out for your Nashville tea.
What up, man? Nashville's such a cool town. It really gives Austin a run for its money in terms of coolness. I love going to Nashville. I go there all the time. I go to Topgolf. Shout out to my people at Topgolf. I must be the #1 customer over there.
Andre says, same feed, no editing, different title prefix. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Decent. That's a good idea.
New feed. This is the off the cuff, different structure. All right, cool. Yeah, we're thinking about it.
Thanks for dropping your ideas in there. Again, the idea is, how do we syndicate this content so that's easier for y'all to have fun, to pass some time, and to get inspiration from some of these ideas that, again, it's kind of this cool loop. We're getting, this episode is from you guys who are reaching out to us. So I'm getting emails at dan@tropicalmba.com. You're getting them at ian@tropicalmba.com. And then I think about them over the weekend and I'm like, holy shit, there's a secret. Like, all y'all are having a good old time. And like, it's like not a lot. It's not like, one of the emails I received said, I can't basically admit this, but I'm really feeling like this is a good time. And so we're going to talk about that.
So yeah, back on topic here.
Back on topic.
Appreciate the heads up on what to do with the stream. We're sitting around this weekend, and it's not just having dry powder right now, right? I think some of us are excited about that. It's like, well, I saved up. Now I'm ready to like buy some undervalued assets, through this dip, and it was more than that. And so it's
much more than
we're sitting around thinking of like, why are there's those people that are excited, but why are all these other people excited? And I was asking Dan, why are people excited that their business is failing? Like, we're talking to somebody over the weekend, and he's like, yeah, I fired a bunch of people, and like, I'm not going to pay my rent and all this stuff. It's like, you look excited. Why are you so excited about that? That doesn't make sense to me, because in an economy that's going up and to the right, if you told me that, I think there's something wrong with your business. Like, how, what's going on?
My read from having that conversation is the business owner was bummed. The business owner was sad about those things and torn. The entrepreneur, on the other hand,
The entrepreneur is
like
excited.
that. The entrepreneur is like that crazy mofo is a little bit excited, and for good reason. Here are the 5 reasons without further ado. Number 1, and this is something I love this point, Ian. It's a chance to step up to bat and play. Okay. One of the things Ian and I were talking about is like, not all the tasks that we do on an everyday basis are entrepreneurial. A lot of them are custodial. That's the bottom, right? Mopping the floors, cleaning the sinks. A lot of them are managerial.
I got one today. I got one today from our accountant, and like, by the way, if you don't respond to this banking request, they're going to shut down your bank account. It's like, this is like all this compliance crap,
managerial.
So just that's what you wake up to and you think like, wow, man, I don't want my bank account to go away. I don't want.
But that's an hour and a half of doing that, and you can't do the thing that you got to do. And this management stuff, it's like, I mean, look, sometimes it's really nice to look at a good TPS report. And if that TPS report says your sales are going up, then cool.
All right, let me give this first point a crack, because I'm the one that came up with it. Again, we're talking about the difference between business owners and a business and entrepreneurs. And a lot of us, we had entrepreneurial moments. Like, that's how we got into business. So it's like you did something amazing. It was a breakthrough. You developed a great product. You found a good service, like something hit. Yeah. You did something that very few people can do, which is you created value a lot of times from thin air, or you elevated value.
You elevated value to agreed upon wealth.
Okay. And a lot of times, when things are going up and to the right, even in good economies, you're just a business owner, right? It's that you don't have to be very entrepreneurial a lot of times. It's just you ride the wave, you follow the dollar, you do the right thing. And what we're hearing from some of you out there in podcast land is that has been going great, and everybody is very thankful for that. But you haven't gotten a chance to go up to bat lately. What I mean up to bat, baseball, obviously. And I think a lot of us are players, not that kind of player. I'm talking about athletes. I'm talking about people with a competitive edge, people that want to compete. Like, that's the reason we participate in sports and entrepreneurship and things like that, is because it gives you a chance to go up to bat, to swing, to crack, to point, to hopefully hit it out of the stadium. And the whole time, baseball is like the most boring sport as far as I'm concerned. Like, these guys are like, they look like me, first of all. I don't have a very athletic build right now, And it's like, this is a sport. They're all just sitting around, man. You're standing in the outfield. You're standing in the infield. You're sitting on the bench. It's like, just get me up to bat, dude. I just want to go up to bat. And so now is the time to go up to bat. Now there's an opportunity to have entrepreneurial moments, because it's not always up and to the right. You got to mix it up. Now's your chance to go up to bat. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs are so excited right now, because they get to have their up to bat moment. They get to go negotiate with their landlord and say, like, I'm not paying my rent, or this is the new terms, right? And we're going to talk about that. They get to redefine their business. They get to go in and they get to say, like, okay, you know what? We're real bloated. I think a lot of people are realizing that right now. Like, we don't need half of these people or half of these processes, or I'm going down the credit card and we don't need half of these services either. Get out of here. That's entrepreneurial. And they get to just in general, reevaluate their business and figure out if it's something that they should be doing. I think a lot of people.
All right. You're stepping over all of our points here.
A lot of people have.
Keep it contained here.
If I get through all 5 points in 10 minutes.
Don't swing at the curveball.
Then we're done.
Stick to the fastball, man.
If a lot of people are going through their business and they're realizing, like, you know what, this business isn't really working. I mean, I think people are going through that right now. It's an opportunity to have it at the bat at an honest moment. You get to swing at this thing and say, like,
collecting dues, managing people, sweeping the floors. Yeah, it's a chance to compete. By the way, boss man with a sneaky elite vertical leap, even at the age of 40. Pretty impressive. All right, number 1 point. I love it. Entrepreneurs just love to be challenged. I can think of some of the worst moments in our business, also kind of the sneaky fun ones, because I mean, look, there's a reason why when you talk to a lot of people who went through difficult circumstances, that's the circumstance that either made them or broke them, right? And you can even think about the generations, like they went to a certain war or something, and that becomes, so long as they feel good about what they did in that war, that really becomes the defining moment for them. And I can think about that in our entrepreneurial careers too, to embrace those moments when someone says, whether it's like a personal slight, like, you know, maybe it was your old boss, or maybe it was your family or something, that said like, you can't do that. And you're like, oh, really? If it's that, or if it's something big, like actually you had $200,000 of student loans and you're like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to pay that. I can do that. Like, there's a lot of people in this world that make 200 grand. Like, I can be one of those players. And that's what you're talking about. Okay.
I got a buddy. He this is just a small story. He went on a vacation and he like really blew it out. He spent like $10,000. It was ridiculous. I would never spend that much on a vacation. But his whole life, because he came into a little bit of money, but his whole life he had gone on these little, $1,000 vacations, really tight budgets, trying to stay in these, as nice of places as you can or whatever. And I said, well, what did you think about that $10,000 vacation when he got back? And he's like, I liked all my other ones better. He's like, it was fine. He's like, anytime I wanted something, I just snapped my fingers and bring me a drink and all this stuff. But it's not that memorable. It's like, it wasn't that great of a vacation.
You know what I think of your friend? Doesn't know how to spend $10,000. Does not. Because here's the thing. You know what? Homeboy don't know how to travel, don't know how to go on vacations. It ought to have been at least more than double better. That's my take.
I don't know about that. My most memorable.
I had a $20,000 vacation one time, and I'm willing to tell the story and it was way better than a $2,000 vacation because I know what the hell I'm doing. So I want to talk to this guy. All right, number 2. And by the way, that $20,000 vacation
lasted 6 months.
I took my I have one of those too. I took my parents on it. So this is how I made it special. So it's not just me drinking champagne. Okay.
It was you and your parents drinking champagne.
All right, guys. Step number 1 was the chance to step up to bat and play. Step number 2, a reorganization of wealth. A lot of people are excited about this idea of a reorganization of wealth. What might that mean? This is because this is the space that entrepreneurs play in. This idea of elevating value to agreed upon wealth. Well, if all of a sudden people disagree or think differently about what that wealth might mean, that's where we live. And I think people are super jacked about that. Your take on that?
This is a tough one because I think when people say reorganization of wealth, like they mean the rich getting richer. Like it's like this stimulus package that only supports the rich. It's like all these rich business owners fill out these forms to get these grants, because they can like pay accountants and lawyers to do it for them, And it's like they're the one, so then the money just gets distributed over to them.
Yep.
I think that happens. So when you say reorganization of wealth, I'm not quite sure what we mean.
Like first off, like, for example, there's a wealthy class over the past 10 years that earn their wealth through securing leverage, and those people operating under a different system and different rules, that if all of a sudden those people find themselves in a pinch, they might not only let go of those assets, but might need different services to maintain them. And those are all the kinds of things. It's like all of a sudden you were this power player, because it's like, we think about the real estate flipper as an example in these situations. Like someone was a power broker 6 months ago, is all of a sudden like that business is not viable right now. And that's the kind of reorganization of power and wealth I'm talking about.
I see. So then I'm gonna pull number 6, because we have 6 points here. I'm gonna steal number 6 and make it part of number 2. And then I'm gonna have a story.
You're reorganizing.
I'm reorganizing our list. So I think you're right about this reorganization of wealth in terms of like leveling the playing field. So
yes.
Imagine this: real estate developer in Austin, small time. Right, small time real estate developer, maybe like 5 or 6 properties, something like that. Right, leverage to the tilt, like, and then all their tenants leave. So then they're like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't have any income coming in. My income got slashed 50%. My whole model was buying up properties and flipping them or putting tenants in them or whatever. Now what happens? Ian comes along with a little dry powder, and a property goes for sale, and guess who can't afford it? Mr. Flipper over here, Mr. Leverage over here can't afford it because he doesn't have any dry powder, because he doesn't have any income from his rental properties. But I, on the other hand, have been saving up. So now all of a sudden, Ian's in the real estate game, going head to head with the guy that was buying all the properties in the area.
Exactly.
So this is true, and you guys can imagine how that applies to your business or in your niches too. But I think you're going to see this happen for sure.
Well, I think, even with like cash asset, I think it's actually way more interesting. It goes across the entire board. It goes down to simple things like leveling the playing field in terms of work ethic. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about how this is like this exposing time. A lot of people are quitting. A lot of people aren't sort of like on the air of this upward trend in the market. And so when everybody kind of like just settles back down to the baseline, and even successful businesses are trying to figure out whether they're going to make payroll or rent right now, it's sort of like, all right, we're all kind of in the shit right now. Like, who's going to make the best of it? And so I've even spoken with a lot of people who have been struggling with business over the years, and they see this as their opportunity. The same exact message that are coming out of the mouth of multimillionaires that we know. It's kind of like everybody feels like we're down in the gates. In some way, those gates haven't opened yet, right? Because America's not open for business right now. The world's not really open for business right now. And so there is this feeling of we're all at the start line right now. Like, what's going to happen? And that's kind of a cool vibe too.
Jeff, real estate mogul, Jeff Fulworth.
That mogul, you.
He says it's true. I got a call over the weekend. Someone already needs a bailout of a house. And Jeff's in the business. And that's the cool part about being in the game and being in the business is people call you and they say like, Jeff down the road, he's got some rentals. I wonder if he can buy this thing.
That's how it works too. Like, we were talking about last week on the show, tangential and like these lateral opportunities like coming to Jeff, as opposed to like all of a sudden jumping into, I'm all of a sudden this new thing now, I think that's how opportunities work more effectively. So not surprising that Jeff's getting opportunities.
One more thing about leveling the playing field, man, if they would only do this, but I don't think they are, corporate America is watching all of they're watching all their employees, like they probably call it telecommute. They're watching all their employees telecommute, still producing results, I'm sure, and what a time for them to be able to level the playing field, to go remote, to get rid of these offices, to hire people at a fraction of what they're hiring before.
Well, look, that's a great example of, we heard some anecdotes where like we had the Office Space movie, 20 years ago now? Like, that the guy who like takes the papers from sales and brings them to engineering, like is completely pointless. And it's like now corporate America is just realizing that like, oh, that whole career is pointless, or like that whole job title is pointless.
Oh, and by the way, how you got here through that college education, that's also pointless.
Boom. That is also a leveling of the playing field. By the way, a bigger leveling of the playing field. If I'm betting right now, boom, collapse of secondary educational institution, of second tier educational institutions in the United States, like done. Nobody is getting a loan for $120,000 to study marketing at fucking Oklahoma Southern University. Not happening.
How about Stanford?
Yeah, it's gonna happen, Stanford, but even they're feeling the pinch right now.
I read that they like furloughed their top employees like 20%.
What about that? Where did they put that endowment?
Yeah. Oh, in the market? They put it in the market?
Dude.
Yeah.
I mean, look, that educational bubble was going to bust regardless of the pandemic. So here's the interesting thing is like, it's so weird comparing 2008 to now, because 2008 was like not this like lifestyle change. It was just like a couple tens of thousands of people like didn't pay mortgages. You didn't really know who they were. And all of a sudden, like, there's news and the economy changes, and then a lot of people lose their jobs, and it's like all this weird economic thing. And it was like that. And this is sort of like the opposite, where it's like, okay, we got a global pandemic. Everybody's sitting at home in a perpetual snow day, and somehow the economy's okay, except everybody's filing unemployment, but they're kind of okay too because they're sitting at home. It's like It's going to be worse than 2008. It's going to be worse than 2008. All right. So anyway, number 3, entrepreneurs are loving this moment because power structures are getting re-examined. For example, a lot of people are asking themselves the existential or philosophical question, rather, what does a contract mean?
You had a great point about this, and we'll use our own lives as an example. So, this weekend was supposed to be DC Austin.
Business guinea pigs.
Man, I'm super bummed about that. About
Especially
150
now would be like the Monday morning brunch, where like it would be like us and you guys sitting around like a little bit hungover and like having pancakes and talking about all the cool shit that we're gonna do.
Sucks, man. It really does. There was a bunch of people that were going to come into town. Like, I feel like we were on a rhythm here in Austin. Like, it was going well. And about a month and a half ago, when
I think it was
Dan and I saw this coming, we proactively decided to cancel the event because it was in the best interest, I felt like, and you felt like, of everybody's health. You know, so we went to the hotel where we had our contract, and we owed them basically like $70,000, and we went to them and we said, look, it's not responsible for us to have this event anymore. Let's shut it down. It's not going to happen. And they said, cool, but you still owe us $70,000. And we're like,
$76,000.
come on, man, really? Like, it's not responsible. And they're like, yeah, you owe us. So
now this is like that step up to the bat moment, because the moment I got the email from this asshole, I thought, man, it sucks to be him. It sucks to be the person that doesn't get to be a human in their day-to-day life.
yeah,
Like, I'm like, literally, guy, do you want me and all of the Dynamite Circle members who live in these areas that have outbreaks all around the world to fly into your fucking hotel, and then we're all going to hang out with your friends and staff? Does that sound like a good idea to you? And he's
his
just thinking,
boss is like right
he's just
here.
like, sales target. You are sales target. And it's like, you know, I'm just so glad I don't have to be in that business.
It was. I think we did this right before South by Southwest canceled. Luckily, I mean, because that would have been like hundreds of thousands of people coming in. Anyways, we have this contract with this hotel, and I think at the moment, like, I was more flipped out about it than you were. I was like, man, Dan, like, dude, this is gonna suck. Like, what? How are we gonna get out of this? Like, this is a situation. And anyways, there's a clause in there for like disasters, and I'm reading the clause, and I'm like, yeah, okay, but like, this is a contract. And I think you brought up a great point, which is like, contracts are agreements between you, somebody else, and essentially the state, right?
Yeah.
Or
whoever they're going to be is the executing body of that contract.
right, whoever the arbiter is. And contracts, these are your words, exist in like a moment in time, basically. Like, they are a contract based on a premise or based on a moment. And in the moment when we made that contract, there was no reason why we wouldn't have that event. So if you pull back from that and you say, like, you know, I'm not going to do this, and the moment hasn't changed or the environment hasn't changed, well, then you're breaking the contract, potentially.
Yeah.
But what had happened was there was a freaking global pandemic.
Well, I mean, so the way I look at it is simply this: like, you can, I think Westerners especially are tempted to look at contracts as a representation of your moral word. And so it's sort of like honor. Like, I signed a contract with you, and like, we shook hands, and like, that's who I am as an honorable person. And now, but look at it. But by the way, who do we sign a contract with? Not another honorable person,
Right?
But an entity that is a dream. It's a phantom. It's something that's on paper, and it's something that's run by this asshole who's just sales target. So first off, there's no honor. Like, no one's putting on the white duels and white gloves and doing a duel here. So if you think it's a representation of your word to a corporation, you're just being a sucker or a martyr. What it actually is a form of power. That's it. I mean, I hate to be all liberal humanities degree guy here, but let me just go for it for a hot second. Simply, that's all it is. It's a form of power. And when different power structures get involved, like the global economy, that's also a form of power. And that was an assumed force when you sign that piece of paper that suggested as that's like there are presumptions, so many presumptions that lead to that paper getting on the desk. And it's a form of power that can be upended by lawyers. Here's the reason I wasn't worried when we're stiffing this Sheraton. I'll get to the point. The point is I didn't think they would be able to collect given the power situation that they would be in a year from now. There's a chance that Sheraton goes out of business, number one.
I was going to name the hotel, but go for it.
There's a chance that if they were, it's a chance that they have hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of outstanding contracts they need to collect on.
Yeah.
Could they even afford the law teams to, so again, I think the cool thing is that,
and then we actually went through that process. Like that was part of my conversation. I was like, basically like, look, Dan, let's imagine this pandemic blows over in 2 months, which is not going to. I was like, if I was them, I would hire a couple $1 million worth of legal team to collect hundreds of millions of dollars.
Correct. And in that case, I considered the worst case scenario to be a basic settlement on that contract, and that we would be able to litigate that cheaply, and that I just wasn't worried, in other words. But it also was interesting. So there's part of that, right? I mean, there's part of this is sort of interesting. And anyway, I'm not saying that as a company, we don't value our relationship with Sheraton. We felt like we were doing the right thing.
Correct.
We weren't trying to F them over. I do value contracts very much. But what I'm saying is that contracts happen in a context, and they're just one form of power. And in a society when everybody agrees and everything's going well, and businesses open up their doors on Monday mornings for 10 years straight, or for 20 years straight, or for 30 years straight, then that's the kind of power structure that's really compelling. When I started doing business in China, you know what Chinese people don't give a shit about? A contract. I mean, this is God's honest truth. I could almost sense them laughing at my love of this piece of paper, because this factory owner has been through so much shit. It's like, cool, Mr. California.
Yeah, we promise we won't sell your products on Alibaba. Okay.
It's like, dude, what the Chinese business people that I always interacted with always understood way more than contracts was power, actual power. And it comes in many forms. It comes in leverage. It comes in reputation. It comes in relationships and family. It comes in cash money. It comes in speed and time. It comes in pieces of paper from California. But I think we've been living in this world in America where everything is just so damn good, and the contract is just what it is. And this is the exciting part, is that not only are wealth structures being reexamined, but power structures are being reexamined.
So when you're thinking about this in the context of what's going on right now, I'm hearing a few things. I'm hearing people renegotiating rents and contracts in the context of this global pandemic. So it's like, look, I was paying you $30,000 in rent. I can't pay that anymore. So what I can pay you is $20,000, and I think I can do that for a year, and then we're going to have to re-examine this, because that's all my business has in terms of runway. So you can either get zero from me, or you can get $20,000. And the reason why this is important, I think, is because what you said, it depends on what's going on. It depends on the time. It depends on the context. And I think if you're a business owner right now and you're feeling entrepreneurial, it might be the time to re-examine some of your contracts. Doesn't necessarily have to be rent.
Sure.
Could be with the people that you work with. Could be with service providers. It could be with merchant accounts, whoever it is.
Cool. I'm tempted to say a political point about power and administrative power.
Before you do that, let me just wrap up this story, which is after South by Southwest canceled, and after the governor basically announced his social distancing thing, they came in and said, we're canceling your event. Okay, no problem. They're like, no problem, we're canceling your event. And like 2 days ago, we got our deposit back.
So Sheraton's been actually, as a corporation, they've acted right.
Yeah, they've acted right.
They acted right.
They were acting right.
All right. I'm going to leave the point off about this political stuff, but I'll mention there's a great book about the 1918 influenza. And I was having a little bit of a political debate the other day, which I tend to stay out of. But the basic point was our response in 1918 as Americans looked very, very similar to our response right now. So if you ask yourself how power works in America, America in particular is a country that's used to exerting its power abroad. And when you take, like, say, 10,000 Americans, or 5 or 15, they can be this like unified power bomb. And when you look at like the way domestic power is distributed, it's a lot different, right? And I don't know, sometimes it's cool to like, you can say like, oh well, whoever's not a good leader, whoever can't do this or whatever, but shit's deep. There was a great tweet by Paul Graham, and this is maybe too cute, too clever, but his point is like, look at how the countries responded in their own national personality to this disaster. So the American response was like chuck money at small businesses. The Chinese response was increase mass surveillance. The Japanese response was increased secrecy.
Yeah.
The Italian response was like, let's go out to cafes anyway. Here's my submission for the Korean response, which is like a new kind of like a Korean thing. It's like, the Koreans did better than expected. Like, I feel like Korea has been this like the success story of the last 25 years or whatever, like across all modalities of society. And we're still surprised that a Hyundai doesn't fall apart in 5 years.
Dude, that's what I was going to say. They haven't made it on the list yet, but I imagine in 5 years they will. Justin Cook from the Empire Flippers just chimed in. He said, definitely renegotiate contracts with the smiley face. Sheraton Marriott did right by me as well. Had a bunch of stuff booked and they hooked me up. So I think this is good. We should applaud. I mean, you shouldn't applaud the guy that was just trying to make the sales.
Figures.
Yeah.
Sales figures.
Don't applaud that guy, but applaud these corporations. Mark Cuban said this a week or two on Twitter. He said the way that corporations act in this time will define them potentially for decades. And I think he's right. Remember, 2 episodes ago, fucking Expedia tried to goddamn sue us for a year over an airplane logo that does not look anything like their logo. So just remember that. And then Sheridan's hooking us and our boy JC up.
All right.
Yeah.
By the way, JC is my favorite coffee table test guy.
What's a coffee table test?
The coffee table test is this. When I talk to a lot of junior copywriters and content creators, they'll say things like, I went on an online course and they told me that this is how you do a headline and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, really? That's how you're going to learn? Here's how I want you to write. I want you to imagine that you're sitting across from the coffee table from Justin Cook.
AKA a smart person that knows how to do business.
AKA someone who's going to be like, don't treat me like that, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, that's fucking bullshit. What are you talking about?
A lot of people in their head, I'm even guilty of this. Sometimes they like imagine conning like a stupid person when they're writing shit. They're like, oh, that's so clever, right? And then when you actually have to tell it to somebody, like take their money, like JC, like, dude, are you kidding me? Why the hell would I give you my money? And you're like, oh, you're not that clever. You're not that stupid person I was trying to con.
Serious about this opportunity? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Number 4, you're forced to endure a forest fire. We talked about this point. Essentially, people are excited about, I mean, dude, you made this very off-color joke, and this has been an off-color a-hole podcast. So I'm going to throw you under the bus right now. You were talking about this company that had to lay off like 400 people. And you're like, I bet that founder is like really relieved that 20 of those people they were really on the fence about for 6 months.
Totally.
They're just gone now and you never have to bring them back.
Oh, I mean, when you have 400 employees, it's just like, you got some bad apples in there, right? And with the labor laws being the way that they are in many states, it's hard to get rid of people. So, if you're in a situation where you can lay everybody off, and I'm sure you wrote a nice letter, like, I hope to hire every single one of you back, except for those 20 people.
Except for Tommy. Fuck Tommy. God, it caused me so many problems.
But I had this thought about the forest fires. Here's the basic idea: is a forest fire is a natural occurring event. Okay, and the forest burns down and it creates fertilizer, and then the trees grow even taller. What we do in America, and I'm sure a lot of different countries, I don't know if it's actually a lot of different countries, but it's definitely America. We cut fire tracks through these forests, basically. And the idea is it's just literally they go in with the bulldozer and they cut tracks so the fire can't jump these tracks. And a lot of times it does anyways. But the reason they do that is to preserve people's houses and people's personal property that they put in the middle of a freaking forest, right? So it's like all the insurance companies and the governments are like, we got to cut these fire tracks to stop this natural process from happening, right? And this is a bit of a natural process. And even the virus, Dan, I hate to say it, is a bit of a natural process that we're trying to avoid. We're all trying to avoid this. We're all trying to avoid bad businesses going down. And a lot of talk on Twitter about this, which is like, should we actually be bailing out these companies? I agree. Should some of these companies survive? No, this is a natural process. Economy goes up, economy goes down. Some people don't make it.
The fire cuts are an example, a classic Taleb example, a Talebian. It's not his example, it's Ian's. An example of high modernism. It's this idea of like a couple smart people having a really good idea, and then like it scales out to tens of thousands of people and or acres. And high modernism works well until it doesn't. It introduces risk into systems. And that's what you're seeing with the global economy. That's why we were talking about in 2009, this location independent business movement came from a fundamental perspective of pessimism. We always took our sweets with some salt because we knew that at some point the party was going to be over. In 2014, when the financial independence retire early crowd started getting popular, they had never really truly felt that hit. And so they were fundamentally optimists, which is why the rallying cry from the Fire Nation, over the next this week has basically been, optimism. We're America. We're the global economy. We're all going to come back better. And maybe we will. But it's just this different look of like, we know from coming from the 2008 crash that when a few smart people think that they understand nature, they think that they understand how the world works. Well, they don't. And we don't know how the world works. And here's the thing. You're all our entrepreneurs listening to this. We don't even know how our businesses work. You really think we understand the freaking planet? No. And so when we try to administrate things at a very high level, we might get some things right. We might actually create movements, but those movements, whether they're political, economic, or whatever, they are vulnerable to collapse.
Final point, Dan.
By the way, Rome doesn't exist anymore. Just feel like I need to remind people.
Oh, it exists. It's just different.
It's a nice place to get a pizza. Okay.
That's pretty much all you can get there, by the way.
All right. I named this episode Assholes after myself, but y'all can join me if you want. There's been a little bit of petty thinking, which is okay. It's fun to be petty sometimes because it can motivate you. When you go up to the plate, we talked about in our first point, sometimes what you're up there thinking is like, fuck that guy, and I got a little bit of chaw in my. It's like the simple things sometimes that can motivate you. We were talking about in our Slack chat today about great music, about how just a simple thing like a music can turn your workday around for sure. And some of us are really happy right now because we feel vindicated. I've got so much message of vindication from who? From family, from friends, from people who doubted the entrepreneurial path, people with real good jobs who thought you were an idiot for living in a van. Well, it's not a problem to live in a van, people. It's smart. It's cheap. It's affordable. No, this wasn't me. I got this from somebody else, but I could feel what they were feeling.
Vindicated.
I think this idea of vindication is very real, like people see you living in a cheaper place, that people don't really know what you're doing, or they see you on Facebook trying to sell your stuff or whatever, and it's like, what's so and so doing? Why don't they get a real job? And well, a lot of people are seeing right now exactly why they didn't get a real job. So that's kind of cool. Whatever gets you motivated, that's the point.
Yeah, this is simple stuff, but I think you're right, Dan. Which is it doesn't need to be I told you so, unless it's the fire community, and then I told you so. But there's a certain sense of like, you know what? I've been acting right, man. I was looking around my place the other day, Dan. I like my place. I would venture to say 80% of it's used. Is that crazy? 80% of what I own is used. Yeah, more than 80% of it's used, and that's just part of my financial philosophy is buy used so then you can have a little dry powder.
Only suckers accept depreciation.
Only suckers.
I mean, we go through this all the time because I'm more of an experienced guy, and like there's this one van that I really want to buy, and the problem is I would endure over $10,000 of depreciation in a relatively quick order. And I was trying to like do the rationalization math of like, well, $10,000 would be worth it because, you know, I spend that on a vacation and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But the reality is like, if you lock in and get a good deal on these assets, they do hang around for years and they become furniture in your life, and it's worth getting a good deal on it and not losing 10 grand on it. So I'm sticking to the program. I'm sticking to the advice. My offer on the mini Winnie was not accepted.
Let's see next week. He said, if you offer, can I tell real numbers? We're talking real numbers, right? Yeah. He said, your offer was 27.5, which is generous, I think. They're asking 34, and he
36.
said 36, and he said offer 30. He said, how about I keep my offer at 27? Next week you come crawling back to me, and then I'll offer you 24.
Yeah.
How about that?
I actually explained to him the entrepreneurial rationalization or the justification for my actions. I said, look, I basically said, I'm going to have to suffer quite a deal of depreciation on this rig. And I'm going to be in a position over the next 2 years where I'm not going to even be able to get rid of this thing.
That's right.
So I'm taking on the risk. And this is the fun part about being on the buy side is there's thousands of rigs and the buy side's in the control right now. So the only thing I have to suffer through is being patient. Of course, I'd love to have the rig
living in my backyard. That's what you got to suffer through.
Yeah. I mean, but it'd be so much fun to go out and buy something and then have a project and all this kind of stuff. You know, if you have in your mind that something you really want and you have to wait 6 or 7 weeks to get your hands on it and do that project, that can be tough, but that's what's required in these situations. And it certainly feels good when you know you're doing the right thing, because I know that RV seller knows I'm doing the right thing, because he's an entrepreneur. And I said to him, the final thing in my thing was text rather was, I really think things are going to change next week and the week after. And I just really haven't seen, at least locally here in America, people aren't quite woke to, people are still listening to the president and what's going on in the news media, who's all saying, bounce back, we're going to bounce back. And
oh yeah, market bounced back this morning, man. 1,000 points, dude. We're rallying. We got our caps on backwards.
The market has nothing to do with the fact that 90% of restaurants are closed right now. Yeah.
All right.
Thank
you so much for joining us.
Comments. Why do we do 45 minutes?
Felt right.
Do that.
Felt right, man. Thank you guys for joining us.
All right.
We will be back same bad time tomorrow.
We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.